quick video response to English Goethe. Didn't agree with everything in your video, specifically your rose-tinted take on life, but you had a bit in the middle where you talked about natural selection, and I found that really interesting. So I just play it and then I'll add my thoughts.
If you consider evolutionary theory, we're at a very primitive state of understanding. I think that a lot more information goes into evolution than merely blind natural selection operating within the Earth's biosphere. The probabilities are just so astronomically low for creatures such as ourselves having evolved that it just, unguided, I suppose it's possible. The parameters would have to be just right. I don't know. I'm not suggesting that there was any kind of guidance, but I do tend to think, I don't know, but I do tend to think that there are feedback loops that involve more input from the environment than just, blind recombination of molecules, in particular conformations, to achieve low energy states, which just so happen to lead to complex long molecules that engage in a lot of them in protein folding, and all of a sudden organisms arise, complex ones. It's possible. I don't know. Nobody really knows what conditions need to obtain for that to happen, but it is interesting to ponder being able to simulate this stuff on a computer to see where it goes, and how probable is it that life as we know it would have evolved on Earth.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It is so improbable. Natural selection, the accumulation of small changes, to get to where we are now, 2 billion years, just doesn't seem anywhere near long enough. I think it's absolutely crackers that people accept this as an adequate explanation. The transition from the first replicating life forms to humans, elephants, whatever, must in this process at every point be possible through tiny increments, single mutations of the genotype. An analogy would be climbing up a hill in slippers. So from the very bottom there has to be a smooth path all the way to the top. And what heady heights we are at the top. Does that even seem likely? It doesn't seem likely to me. And people will turn it round and say, well, the environment is always changing. But when people do that, all they're doing is pushing the improbability of what's happened onto the environment, and that's no good. There's no explanatory power in that. With natural selection you have something that does have explanatory power. Putting the onus on the environment doesn't help. That really would be a fluke. There's no mechanism for accumulating changes. There's no. It doesn't help us. So people do that all the time, but it doesn't help at all. And another thing I find problematic is natural selection as a process is specialising. It specialises an organism to its environment. So you get this local maxima problem. Right? It's a blind process, there's no foresight. It carries on specialising till the organism is optimal to the environment. So why these very complex organisms? The process should have parked up the population in a local maxima a long time ago, before we got to where we are. People often mention genetic drift, another process that's happening all the time, and that doesn't help. That's also specialising in effect. It makes the population more homogeneous. So that doesn't save us either. So in the system as understood, in the explanation that's accepted at the moment, where does generic complexity come from? Where does generic complexity come from in natural selection? I have a real problem seeing how that works. You talked a little bit about abiogenesis. I don't know anything about that really. In terms of the evolution of organisms from first replicator, Do we need to invoke guidance from higher powers? Hey, yeah, it's possible. You mentioned a feedback, some kind of, could it be feed forward, maybe? Some kind of process, another process that isn't understood that completes the picture, something that would be Lamarckian, I guess. Some kind of Lamarckian process is out there, waiting to be understood. People don't deal with this subject properly because of all the ideology that surrounds it. So, religious people have an a priori hostility to natural selection, and that causes, in turn, atheists to accept it uncritically. But it's really nice to see someone on YouTube being a little bit critical and saying, hey, what's happening here is so improbable. It's just crazy, and I'm convinced we only understand half the picture. Anyway, that's thanks for your video. I thought it was great, and that's all I wanted to say. Have a good day.